You know how some people just seem to, well, consistently land on their feet in financial deals?
Yeah.
How they navigate negotiations and just seem to get what they want.
Hmm.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into the playbook of one of the masters of that arena, Donald J. Trump, using his book, The Art of the Deal, as our guide.
Right.
Let's try and forget the headlines for a minute. We're looking at the underlying mindset, the principles that shaped his approach to deal making,
Okay.
and how those might just offer some maybe surprising insights for your own financial interactions.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is really to unpack those core strategies and see what you, the listener, can maybe apply, whether you're negotiating a salary or, I don't know, buying a car.
It's a fascinating area, really, because for Trump, negotiation wasn't just like a tactic. It was fundamental. It was the driving force behind his business empire.
Right.
And there's this powerful idea that really captures his approach.
Mhm.
The value of something isn't fixed,
Yeah.
It's what you can successfully negotiate for it.
That's a key shift in thinking.
It is. That shift in perspective is key, isn't it?
Right.
It underscores that mastering negotiation isn't some optional extra. It's actually crucial for maximizing your financial well-being.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts then. One of the first things that really jumps out is this idea of think big.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't just about having grandiose dreams, although, Trump certainly had those. Like envisioning the development of the huge West Side rail yards, where was it, 78 acres first, then aiming for 100.
Yeah, massive scale.
And the Commodore Hotel project was another huge swing. But what's interesting is, while he thought big, really big, he also seemed pretty adept at breaking these massive projects down into manageable, negotiable bits.
Exactly. It wasn't just a blanket statement like, I want this huge piece of land.
Yeah.
It was about seeing the potential, right? The potential of that underused space, and then strategically tackling the individual piece, the approvals, the financing, the partnerships, all the things needed to bring that big vision to life.
Right, the smaller steps.
Yeah, the source material mentions his initial idea for middle-income housing on the West Side, which, later evolved into the much more ambitious convention center and television city idea.
Ah, okay.
So it highlights that thinking big can be a starting point, yeah? A way to anchor your hopes high. But the real work, the day-to-day, lies in the methodical approach to those smaller negotiations that actually pave the way.
So for you, the listener, this might mean identifying your big financial goals,
Right.
but then asking yourself, okay, what are the concrete steps? What are the individual negotiations that will move me towards that bigger thing?
Precisely. Was it step 1, step 2, step 3?
Okay. And once that big picture is kind of in focus, Trump was clearly a master of figuring out how to, use your leverage.
Oh, definitely.
This is where things get really insightful, I think. It's about understanding what the other party truly needs, or maybe fears, and then strategically using that understanding.
Yeah. And the sources give some really compelling examples of this in action. What's fascinating here is how multifaceted his approach to leverage was. It wasn't just, about having more money.
No.
Take the Commodore Hotel. He persuaded the owners to publicly announce they were closing. Now, that immediately put pressure on the city.
Huge pressure. A boarded-up hotel near
No.
Grand Central.
Exactly. A blight. A big concern for the city's image, its economy. That public pressure became a key piece of his leverage.
Okay.
Or think about Holiday Inn in Atlantic City. He might not have been that far ahead in construction compared to others, but he cultivated that perception.
Right. The impression.
Yeah, the impression he was the front runner.
Yeah.
Tapping into Holiday Inn's desire to back a winner, that perceived momentum became his leverage.
Absolutely. And the examples just keep coming, don't they? Naming the West Side Rail Yards project Television City. That wasn't just catchy.
No, it was strategic.
It was a direct play on NBC potentially needing a modern facility, right?
Yeah.
Creating political leverage by saying, hey, we need to keep this major network in New York.
Mm-hmm. And then with Trump Tower, the potential loss of Bonwit Teller, that created leverage with the City Planning Commission to approve the zoning he wanted.
And that threat of building the, let's call it the less attractive as-of-right building.
Which was his legal right to build if they didn't approve his preferred design.
Right. That served as leverage, too, pushing them towards his vision.
And he even leveraged his reputation in Atlantic City, basically saying, unlike those other developers who failed, I actually deliver credibility as leverage.
She wasn't shy about it.
Not at all. And remember, the implied threat to just walk away from the whole Atlantic City licensing thing if it got too bogged down in bureaucracy.
Yeah. Or during the Hilton casino purchase, bidding high, but sort of subtly suggesting he could walk away if the terms weren't exactly right.
Even with the tenants at 100 Central Park South, that initial hard line signaled, hey, I'm willing to let this drag on if my demands aren't met.
It really boils down to understanding the other side's motivations, their pressure points, their vulnerabilities.
It really does. And this brings up a crucial question for you, the listener. In your own financial negotiations, salary, car purchase, and investment, what leverage do you actually have?
It might not always be obvious.
Exactly. It might not be. But think about your unique skills, maybe the other party's deadlines, what alternatives they might have, or even just the downside for them if the deal falls through. Identifying and then, strategically using your leverage is a really valuable takeaway here.
Okay, so we're thinking big, we're using our leverage, what's next? Trump was also a big believer in maximize your options.
Yes. Don't get locked into a single path.
Right. It's about not being stuck with just one way forward.
Precisely. Having multiple options gives you significant bargaining power. It just does. The sources illustrate this quite well. For the Commodore Hotel deal, he was simultaneously chasing city approvals, lining up financing from different places, and talking to potential hotel operators, all at the same time.
Didn't wait for one domino to fall before pushing the next one.
Exactly. And with the Bonnewood Teller site, he was looking at both options. Renovate the old building or tear it down and build new.
Kept his options open.
And that as-of-right building plan for Trump Tower, it wasn't just a bluff. It was a real alternative. And that strengthened his hand when negotiating for the design he really wanted.
Right.
Even in Atlantic City, negotiating leases with purchase options gave him flexibility and, importantly, lowered his upfront risk. Less capital needed initially.
So for us, in pretty much any financial situation, getting a loan, looking at job offers, exploring investments, it's smart to cultivate multiple possibilities. Don't just get fixated on one outcome.
Absolutely. Explore different routes, get multiple offers on the table, keep things flexible. It really strengthens your negotiating position.
Okay, now let's talk about a tactic that, well, Trump was certainly known for, being willing to fight for the best deal.
Even if it means being controversial.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is his apparent willingness to be, well, aggressive when he felt it was necessary to get what he wanted.
He wasn't afraid to push.
Not really. Think about his public statements on the Commodore Hotel becoming a disaster if boarded up, not exactly subtle, was it?
No.
Or accusing a deputy mayor of self-interest regarding the convention center site. He even went public saying he could build the convention center way cheaper than the city's estimates, directly challenging them.
And that famous line about a competitor having a great line of, well, rhetoric.
But where are the bricks and mortar?
Yeah.
Outrageous at the time, maybe. But, looking back, there was some truth to it. And his initial hard stance against the tenants at 100 Central Park South, it eventually softened, but it showed he wasn't afraid to start tough.
Right. So the takeaway here isn't necessarily go be abrasive all the time.
No, definitely not.
But it's about being unafraid to forcefully advocate for what you want, to challenge initial offers that just don't work for you.
Right. The skill is doing it strategically, knowing when to push, and maybe when a more collaborative approach is better.
Finding that balance.
Precisely. It's about knowing your value, having confidence in your position, and not hesitating to push for your interests, even if it creates a bit of friction sometimes.
And finally, a principle that might be harder for some people, know when to walk away. This feels crucial for keeping control.
Oh, it's absolutely critical. Being willing to walk away shows you have alternatives. It shows you won't be pushed into a bad deal.
And the sources show Trump did this.
Several significant times. He let his option on the 60th Street yards expire back in '79 to focus on better deals. His implied threat to pull out of the Atlantic City licensing if it got too difficult.
Right.
Same with the Hilton casino deal, willing to walk if the price wasn't right for him. Even that initial tough stance with the 100 Central Park South tenants hinted he might just abandon his original plans, which ironically led to a better outcome later through renegotiation.
So setting your bottom line, your non-negotiables, and sticking to them is key.
It is.
If the deal crosses that line, being ready to walk away shows strength. And sometimes maybe it even makes the other side rethink things.
Exactly. You need to define what you'll accept and what's unacceptable. Once those lines are crossed, being able to disengage is one of your most powerful tools.
Okay. Now, beyond these core tactics, the sources really emphasize something else, too. The importance of information and branding in Trump's whole strategy.
Yeah, and what's particularly interesting is how these two things seem to, amplify his ability to negotiate effectively. Let's take information first.
Okay.
The source material is clear. Trump was a serious gatherer of intelligence. He dug deep into Penn Central's bankruptcy to spot the West Side rail yard's opportunity.
He saw the opening.
He understood the city was desperate for development during its fiscal crisis that became crucial leverage in the Commodore deal. He knew about the financial troubles other casino developers were having in Atlantic City.
Oh.
He even researched the financial status of the tenants at 100 Central Park South to understand their motivations, their limits, and he was aware of NBC's potential need to relocate.
It sounds like he went into every negotiation armed with a really deep understanding of the other side, their needs, their pressures, their alternatives.
Exactly. That must have given him a huge advantage.
I'd imagine so.
Because having that deep knowledge lets you tailor your approach, right? You can anticipate their moves, spot leverage points others might miss. So for you, the listener, this just hammers home how vital it is to do your homework before any financial negotiation.
Research everything.
Yeah. Research industry benchmarks, understand the other party's situation, their real motivations, their alternatives. The more informed you are, the stronger your position. Simple as that.
And then there's the other piece, the undeniable power of building a personal brand. Trump certainly cultivated a very, very specific image.
Oh, he absolutely did. And it became a massive asset in his negotiations. Think about the name itself, the Trump Organization. It sounded big and powerful, even when it was smaller.
Projected strength.
Right. He actively promoted his connections with politicians like Abraham Beame, even if the direct benefits were maybe debatable. That description of him as a throwback to the 19th century as a promoter, larger than life that captures it. And the success of Trump Tower, the positive architectural reviews that seriously boosted his profile and credibility, his reputation for getting projects done on time, on budget, that became a key selling point with banks.
People knew he could deliver.
And he kept a high public profile during big deals. In the convention center fight, Atlantic City, he was always out there.
So in a way, his brand, this perception of success, of being the deal maker, someone who gets things done, it kind of walked into the room before he did.
I think that's a great way to put it. It likely gave him an inherent edge. People felt they were dealing not just with a developer, but with Trump.
Right.
And while, you might not be aiming for that level of fame, think about how your own reputation and your professional presentation can influence your financial negotiations.
How you come across matters.
It really does. Professionalism in job interviews, having a solid track record in business, these things build your personal brand and can subtly but significantly affect how people see you and what you're proposing.
Okay, so we've looked at the core principles, the power of info and branding. Now, let's bring this back home for our listener. How can these ideas be practically applied in their everyday financial lives, using those examples from the source?
Right, this is where the rubber meets the road. The source material gives some relatable scenarios, like when you're negotiating your salary.
Okay.
Remember Trump's research. You need to do the same. Research industry standards for your job, your experience in your area. Understand your own value, just like Trump knew the value of his brand and track record.
Know what you bring to the table.
Exactly. Be ready to clearly state your accomplishments, your contributions. Similar to how Trump would highlight finishing projects like Trump Plaza on time and budget. And crucially, don't be afraid to ask for more than they first offer. Trump always aimed high.
Don't just accept the first number.
Right. And finally, have alternatives. If this job offer isn't quite right, what else are you looking at? Having options gives you power.
Makes perfect sense. What about, say, buying a car or a house?
Again, research is absolutely critical. Just like Trump researched real estate values, know the market value of similar cars or houses. Try to figure out the seller's motivation. Maybe they need to sell fast, like Penn Central needed cash.
Look for their pressure points.
Be ready to walk away if the price isn't right. A classic Trump move. And negotiate everything. Price, financing terms, extras, closing dates, whatever. Don't just accept the asking price as fixed.
Got it. And for investing or bigger business deals?
Focus on understanding the real underlying value, like Trump assessing the long-term potential of the West Side rail yards. Identify your leverage. What unique skill or connection do you bring?
Okay.
And negotiate all the terms: fees, equity, partnerships. Don't just accept standard stuff. Trump always looked for unique, favorable arrangements for himself.
Right. Always pushing for that edge, even for just everyday purchases.
Yeah. Adopt the mindset that, hey, maybe everything is negotiable. Don't be afraid to ask for a discount or better terms. Even small savings add up. It reflects that general Trump approach of always looking for the best possible deal.
And underlying all of these applications.
Preparation.
Yeah.
Thorough preparation is absolutely key. Research the other side. Know your walkaway point before you start. Have your arguments ready. Have your facts straight. Trump's intense information gathering shows how fundamental this is.
So the core message here, the real essence of this art of the deal mindset, it seems to be about approaching financial interactions strategically,
Yes.
being incredibly prepared, and acting with confidence to put yourself in the best position for, well, building wealth.
That sums it up really well. And it leads us to a question for you, our listener. What's the single biggest takeaway for you from Trump's negotiation tactics that we've talked about today?
Yeah, what resonated most?
Think about how you might consciously try to apply just one of these principles in your own financial life, maybe even this week.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Consider the long-term impact of building a reputation as a skilled but also principled negotiator. How might consistently applying these strategies, always keeping ethics in mind, of course, shape your future financial opportunities and actually the kinds of relationships you build along the way?
That's definitely something worth thinking about, the long game.